Hey guys, Richard at Ride and Zoom, or rather outside my bedroom, outside my house, doing my latest book review. It's quite a quick one, just while it's all fresh in my head before I forget and end up forgetting and rambling on and missing things. Book one, Black Fleet Crisis Before the Storm. So I was just going through all the old books, the ones Bantam, Del Rey, ones I haven't read, ones that were never essential to like NGO, anything like that, and thought I'd just give them a go. So basically ended up with a bunch of trilogies left over. This, The Adventures of Han Solo, the Lando Calrissian Adventures, the Han Solo trilogy, which is considered the best one, and then Scoundrels with a short story prequel in as well. So yeah, thought I'd do this one first because it's, well, 3 individual books, not carrying such a massive book around, although admittedly the Adventures duo aren't that big either. In fact, the Lando one's like 100 pages shorter or more. But yeah, just to do this one first, and also based in the Han Solo one, the Lando one, then Scoundrels, and then the so-called better Han Solo one. So pretty much just read these first because it's completely separate, and then the Han and Lando books afterwards, and then I'm out of Star Wars books. I'll probably pick up like the Clone Wars ones, the multimedia project they call them, that I didn't get around to, like Cestus Deception, Jedi Trial. Maybe rent out some of the Disney era ones like Brotherhood, that do look pretty cool. But yeah, for now it's this. So basically the plan is this Warhammer book. In fact, once I get to the like collection books, it's basically the Warhammer like collections with novellas and things in. So like for each big Han and Lando book, I've got 2 big Warhammer books to go. But yeah, this is just single one. Same for Warhammer right now. It's this and War Boss book 2, the big Dakar, and then book 3, and then the either the most recent The Red Goblin book or Ashes of the Imperium. I don't know if I get that on Christmas, and which I will. But mainly if I'm actually up to that point, which I think I will. They're quite big books I've got, and there's also a book 3, like the latest James Patterson Alex Cross book. But yeah, onto this end. So before I give this a go, I heard some things like saying it's not really worth it because, you know, the prequel trilogy kind of gave us answers. Like one of the main plots, I'd say it's the smallest plot because Luke is barely in this book at all, is Luke being, you know, recruited by his mother, like people. So this is obviously 1996, so before Phantom Menace, so before Naboo, before Padme, Queen Amidala, etc., all of that. And I heard about that and I figured, nah, why not? I mean, this was obviously written before that George Lucas basically created the prequels. He clearly weren't exactly given these authors tips, you know, Luke's mother will be this woman called Queen Amidala from a planet called Naboo, which in the future you may see, etc. No, nothing like that. They just had to roll with it. Same for the whole clear implication that the Empire been around for around 50 years or more. I've always felt 50, but this suggests otherwise. And also that Jedi could have families, because a lot of Luke's students are like relatives of murdered Jedi Knights and Masters. Obviously, George Lucas changed it with, you know, the Jedi are basically not, as the Republic Commando book says, not sworn to celibacy, but not allowed to be committed to women, which is, of course, interesting way of looking at things. But yeah, I think before Phantom Menace came out, we all thought Jedi would have families. So Anakin and having children wasn't exactly an exception to the rule. And of course, that was far more than 20 years. And I mean, that's kind of the biggest thing that's bugged me. Like, the way your New Hope is set up, you think, this has been a long ass time since the Empire have like took over. Not 20 years, hell, not even 19 years as the official, but got to be 50. I mean, obviously Obi-Wan is, what, 57? I think this Phantom Menace age kind of contributes to that. Unless he was officially described as 57 in the first book, like in the novel or something. But yeah, the actor was older, and you just seen Obi-Wan was like 80 or something, and that maybe the Jedi were still functioning during the Empire's reign, or just more or less wiped out in one day, minus 100 to 1,000 survivors. But yeah, I kind of just go into these books thinking, you know, ignore the prequels, just enjoy the stories what they told, you know, and yeah, it's a good one. So I know, see, this stuff with Luke's mum, I don't even know where it ends because I've not spoiled in book 2 and 3, thankfully, but I'm guessing he doesn't get answers ever meets her or anything. But yeah, we'll see when we get there. But yeah, another massive contradiction in this is the timescale. So like how I thought 50 years, and Luke believes Obi-Wan was living on Tatooine for 50 years, and Yoda on Dagobah for 100. And 100 is a bit of a stretch. I mean, like in episode 3, Yoda will go out fighting on like if the chance to kill the leader of the Sith. He had to do that. Yoda wouldn't just hide for another 50 years, assuming Obi-Wan ran to Tatooine on day 1 and spent 50 years there. Who knows, maybe this will go for more. So yeah, I do love it when these books provide contradictions to what we believe, and even the prequels contradicted them as well. But yeah, so I'll go to Luke's plot first. It's quite short. Basically, Luke hands over the reins of Jedi Order to someone else and goes off to basically live as a hermit because he feels like he can't, you know, listen to the Force calling to him properly, etc., with so many duties. Goes to one of Darth Vader's caves, and that's where he meets his mother. And spoiler for Fate of the Jedi. Now, unlike the Callista stuff, I had no idea the Falanisi is Luke's mother's species, and that's where Luke goes in Fate of the Jedi. It's the first people, the white currents, all that. And yeah, it's quite a nice tie into this, actually. I'll admit that. Troy Denning, despite his faults, obviously did do a bit of background research. Exact same thing Christine Golden, I've noticed, for her trio in that series. And yeah, that's quite cool, knowing that on Luke's Force journey, like 30 to 40 odd years later, that's the first place he'll go. So respect, that's a very nice touch. And the other main plot is Leia meets the leader of a group of planets. They just want to be allies. They don't want to be part of the New Republic, but they don't want to wage war. And it's basically just a giant distraction to wage their own war and claim the New Republic are their enemies, if it not listen to anything they've said. And they're basically on the brink of starting a war, the Black Fleet crisis, because they've gathered a bunch of Black Fleet ships. Like they fought back against the Empire, clearly just view everyone who's not them as their enemy. So New Republic, Empire, etc. So yeah, Lando ends up part of that plot, which is quite cool. He's not on the cover or anything. Although, Lobot is the guy with the cool headgear from Cloud City. He becomes the main part, which is pretty sweet. Now, he calls him a cyborg, but is that just the head, or has he got like more of a cyborg body? Who knows, but quite cool to see such a minor person. The guy just helps Lando fight back against the Empire, admittedly, and stash their prisoners in the dungeons or a closet or something. Quite cool, he's part of this. Basically, Lando goes off with C-3PO and R2 and him to work out what they're doing, and Lando's hunches and thinking, gets what they need. You know, Leia's now still the president of the Republic, cracking under the pressure, and you know, put so much faith in the guy who is obviously not her ally or not even her friend, and that happens while Han has to basically go off on the missions as well. And yeah, it's a bit of a shame watching Leia like breaking down, but I guess she's been president for about 10 years at this point. She's probably going to crack. Problem is, spoiler for future books, a Thrawn duo, she is the president of chief of state when the Empire formally surrenders. So I know she's not leaving, even though she threatens to resign. But yeah, that's kind of it. There's a lot of good political intrigue. It's strange how little Luke does, because he's like the biggest head on the cover, but it's obviously tying up to a bigger adventure. It's just, yeah, it's always odd in these books how Luke is like has to be injured or weakened or unsure of himself therefore, but I imagine it leads to him doing something really cool and badass later. But we'll see. So yeah, even though I know from Phantom Menace and prequels who Luke and Leia's mother is and everything, still look forward to seeing this, because just got to look at an open mind. It was different in 1996, where you didn't know anything about the back history of Star Wars, and this author did a good job. And yeah, winning his credits, Michael P. QB McDowell's how it's pronounced, it says in there. Yeah, he's been with Pride sci-fi writer, but then so was one who did the two of the Callista books, and I just didn't like her style. Most people don't, or it's just general books. So I've got no real opinion on people's writing styles. I'm not a trained author. Is the book enjoyable? Yes or no? And this is, thankfully. I was skimming a bit through the first, not skimming, but bored a bit during the first like part of like space exploration and stuff. But I'm kind of stuck with it because I really enjoyed this. I don't want books to be ones I won't like and just not bother finishing or skimming through. That's not why I read these books. I hope to enjoy the story, and thankfully I enjoyed this one. So yeah, I'll soon have book 2 done. Current book is War Boss from the Warhammer series, good old orc book. They're just great fun. It's on my desk while I'm building some Warhammer. Then it's James Patterson's latest Alex Cross book, Return the Spider. Like, God, will ever leave Gary Sinise alone? He died in book 4, burned to death in an underground sub. Sorry for the spoiler, but that's an ancient book. But he keeps on coming back in some form, whether it's AI tricks or his followers, so who knows. And then, yeah, basically again, Black Fleet 2, The Big Dakar, and then anyone who watched Hollyoaks, I'll have book reviews up, but it's like watched Hollyoaks in the 2000s, particularly Gary Lucy's character Luke Morgan had easily Hollyoaks' most famous story. Read one of his book, basically the character's diary, as like an author wrote it as if it's the character writing his diary down after like the horrible thing that happens to him. And then there's a sequel which I never read, so I picked up the original, thought I'd give it a reread. Hollyoaks done a similar story, let's just say that, recently in their Bookside crossover. And there's a second one set afterwards, so got those to read. Basically, it's following a pattern. Book 1, Star Wars. Book 2, Warhammer. Book 3, something else. But yeah, that's it. So, don't want to ramble on. It's not quite 10 minutes yet, but hope you enjoyed the review, and I'll see you next time. But final thoughts, definitely recommended. It's, ignore that Luke's barely in it. It's got tied into something bigger. I'm sure it gets much more page time in future ones, but that's like the X-Wing books. They were focused on not using these 3 at all. Luke's part of Rogue Squadron. He's not for this story. And yeah, it's good that they can do without the big 3. Gives Lando much more time to shine, for example, which is totally cool. So yeah, hope you enjoyed the book review, and I'll see you next time.